Please make sure that you're still subscribed to the channel because YouTube keeps unsubscribing you guys, and I don't know why they're doing that.
More shit has happened.
Shannon said, what is this case about? I forgot. Right, defamation.
What this fire really needed was more gasoline, I guess.
This is all fucking irrelevant.
The story that does not end.
This case has gone so far off the fucking rails. Oh my God. And is Toddy even still a part of the case? That's an excellent point.
Hey you guys, welcome back to my channel. Katie Joy's lawyer once again is making bad decisions and filing useless paperwork. Brown has now filed a defendant's motion to qualify counsel to continue representation, along with yet another self-made declaration.
At this point, Brown's like a witness in this case.
There are so many contradictions in this paperwork, you guys. It cannot be good for Brown. But before we start, do not forget to go down below and subscribe to the channel and ring the bell button so you can get notified every time I post. Also, as a quick disclaimer, I just want to remind you guys that everything we discuss here in the channel is my opinion, and my opinion only, not to be taken as a fact. Always do additional research from the information that you get here in the channel. Do not send any hate to the people that I'm going to be talking about in this video.
Am I right, fellow adult?
However, I do encourage all of you to go in the comment section and let me know what do you think about the situation. As you guys are probably aware already, Mr. Brown, Katie Joy's lawyer, has filed another document, and this one is very contradictory about his real relationship with the witness Lorianne. In this filing, he's trying to say that he has no attorney-client relationship with Lorianne, and at the same breath saying that he does have an attorney relationship with Lorianne as far as Brown is concerned.
I don't know what the fuck is happening.
In my opinion, this filing is clearly a waste of money, very unnecessary, and super contradictory. I have no idea what he's trying to do here, but we're gonna give it a read and talk about it. If it's your first time here in my channel and this is the very first video of mine you're watching, I have made a playlist on the situation and I'm gonna leave it up here and down below so you can catch up with this train wreck. But let's go ahead and start reading the defendant's motion to qualify counsel to continue representation, and we're also gonna have Brown's declaration after it. Introduction. Conference of counsel. On January 13, 2021, plaintiffs filed the declaration of non-party witness Lorianne Barnhart. In that declaration, Ms. Barnhart testified that on or about January 10, the undersigned offered to represent her as an attorney for purposes of her response to a subpoena from plaintiffs, suggested that such an attorney-client relationship was formed at around that time, and testified that she had some quote-unquote interest with regards to this lawsuit that was in conflict with the interests of the undersigned's client, defendant KJ.
I feel for Lorianne at this point. She is probably so sick of seeing her name in this lawsuit.
Defendants were concerned that plaintiffs included this testimony in the declaration to set up an argument to disqualify the undersigned and his firm from continuing to represent defendants in this matter. What I get from this is that Brown is afraid that Saltz could request that Brown get removed from defending KJ any further, since he allegedly had a attorney-client relationship with Lori Barnhart, because they had been communicating through several emails and they also had several phone calls. And if she has to testify either for the jurisdiction or for the sanctions, he may not be able to be cross-examining her, and that's what he's afraid of. So he's trying to again try to clarify his relationship or lack thereof with her in this additional filing. Accordingly, the undersigned arranged a meet and confer with plaintiff's counsel on January 27, 2021 to discuss the matter and his plan to bring a quote-unquote motion to qualify to request that this court enter an order finding that no qualifying attorney-client relationship was formed.
I have an issue. How do you argue 2 days ago in a motion that Saltzy should be fined sanctions by the court for the Lorianne declaration because Lorianne was represented, and then come in here and say, I want the court to find by order that there was no attorney-client relationship, but had already asked the court to fine Saltz based on an attorney-client relationship. How are we arguing both sides of this?
To the undersigned's surprise, in that call, plaintiff's counsel assured the undersigned that despite having included the above testimony in Ms. Barnhart's declaration, they did not see a potential conflict issue and had no intentions of arguing for disqualification based in any such alleged attorney-client relationship. Based on that representation, the undersigned sought future guidance on the ethics issue and determined that the motion to qualify could be obviated if plaintiffs would simply confirm in writing what they represented during the meet and confer. To me, that's the ultimate self-esteem issue here. He is so insecure right now. He needs somebody to confirm to him that he's not going to be surprised with some sort of like motion to disqualify him from the case. To me, that reeks desperation. Because let's remember, this is a court where he has filed a motion to dismiss, telling this court, hey, you don't tell us what to do, you do not have jurisdiction over me, but I am so afraid of being disqualified. Please tell them to write down that they're not going to try to disqualify me.
Oh, that's an excellent point.
The undersigned proceeded to repeatedly ask plaintiffs for that confirmation, but they repeatedly refused. And then he directs everybody to Exhibit A on his declaration. So let's go and look at that. Exhibit A is an email from Michael P. Brown to Michael Saltz plus his legal team. I have looked further into the matter of disqualification since you informed me last week that you have no intent to challenge my ability to continue as defendant's counsel based on Lori's statements in her declaration. I believe that under these circumstances, the motion to qualify can be obviated by the stipulation confirming your intent in that regard. I would like to proceed in that matter. I'm attaching a draft stipulation for your review. Please let me know if you are willing to so stipulate. Clearly, it looks like that this email is some sort of follow-up from their meet and confer, where Brown expresses that he really wants them to put something in writing. Initially, they explained that they wanted to reserve the right to move to disqualify if, quote-unquote, it becomes an issue later on, and, quote-unquote, if and when they learn more information. He refers to Exhibit A 2 and 4 with emphasis on 4. So let's go look at these emails. This is a reply from Jeffrey Belanco, who I believe is the Washington local attorney working with Saltz in this case. Hi, Michael. I don't believe there's anything to stipulate to in this instance. Even if we did stipulate to such a motion, I don't feel like we should be precluded from raising an issue if it becomes an issue later on. I have never been asked to stipulate to someone being qualified to represent a party, so I'm not sure why that is necessary in this instance. This is email number 2, and then Brown responds to this email, and then there's email number 4, which is the one that he emphasizes on his filing. However, I don't want to take this storyline out of context, so I'm going to read Brown's response, and then we're going to move on to the email number 4. Let me provide you more context why I think I need to file a motion to qualify or get your stipulation. You prepared a declaration for Lori in which she appears to say she believed I was her lawyer. You claim she said that to you when you made contact with her around January 12. You also said in her declaration that she had some interests that conflicted with my Katie's interests. My Katie, huh? Now, but in all seriousness, I think that he first wrote Katie, but he didn't want it to sound like too informal, and then he tried to put my client, and then he messed up. I don't think that he meant what he wrote. By putting that in her declaration, you were suggesting there is a conflict with me proceeding to represent Katie and WOACB. I can't just proceed with the threat hanging over my head that you will move to disqualify me. You clearly indicated on your call that you have no interest to do that. I understand that if you will commit to that in writing, I do not need to bother the court with this motion to qualify. Now we're gonna go to email number 4, and this one has emphasis. Hi, Michael. I think it's important to distinguish between what Ms. Barnhart states in her declaration and what I said. I don't think you can attribute statements made in her declaration to me or any of the lawyers for plaintiffs in this case. That being said, I don't know what relationship actually existed, if any. So asking me to stipulate to the existence or non-existence of a relationship you may or may not have had with a third party seems to put me in a tough spot. I don't know if this is an issue or not, and I don't want to waive my right to raise this issue if and when I learn more, which is why I stated that a stipulation from me now may not be worth anything because I would reserve my right to change my mind undersigned when more information comes available. I don't know why he wanted to emphasize this, but I am agreeing with this counsel's side. I would definitely also want to reserve my right to change my mind. The undersigned responded that the stipulation need only repeat what plaintiffs represented during the call, that they have no current concerns that would cause them to ask for disqualification, and they could reserve the right to move in the extremely unlikely event they learn new information that would give rise to such a concern. Plaintiffs then shifted their position, stating that they quote-unquote do have concerns currently about a potential conflict based on what they knew at the time of the meeting confer, and therefore would not sign a stipulation. Defendants should not be forced to proceed under the constant threat that plaintiffs will choose some strategic time in the future to make the disqualification motion that they clearly hinted at in the Barnhart Declaration, then clearly disclaimed on January 27, and then hinted at once again when asked to commit to that position in writing. As such, defendants asked the court to rule now on the disqualification issue, to give them some certainty that their defense in these proceedings or future proceedings in another forum will not be disrupted by a motion to disqualify that the plaintiffs are keeping in their back pocket. So Brown is coming to a court he believes that has no jurisdiction or power over this case to ask them to strip the rights of the plaintiff's attorneys to get more information before they decide if Brown is ethically apt to continue or not, when he was the one that put himself in this position in the first place.
You filed it in a precipice, a 300-page declaration, and a motion for sanctions.
He wants the court to sanction Michael Saltz because of his relationship with Lori Barnhart, but he also wants the court to tell Saltz that he cannot disqualify Brown because he does not have a relationship with Lori Barnhart. What the hell is he doing? This man is insane, in my opinion. Allegedly. Don't come for me. Summary of argument. As explained on docket 43, 1 and 52, the circumstances surrounding plaintiff's procurement of Ms. Barnhart's testimony were highly unusual and highly concerning, and there is reason to believe Ms. Barnhart was not in position to swear an oath to any testimony on January 13th. However, even taking her testimony regarding the alleged attorney-client relationship at face value, the undersigned remains qualified to continue to represent defendants for the following reasons. I love how he says that after January 13th, she wasn't in any state to do a declaration. However, his declaration that she did with him, oh yeah, that one is good. That one can be believed. Why? He makes no sense.
Brown saying the story she told me is the true one and the story she told him is the not true one, even though that's the one she signed. Oh my God. You can't do that, bro.
First, quote unquote, disqualification is a drastic measure, and quote unquote, the court must consider the danger of a motion to disqualify opposing counsel as a litigation tactic. He lists a case here, FMC Technologies Inc. versus Edwards 420F. Plaintiffs shifting positions on this motion only underscored this concern here. Second, the emails on which the declaration relies do not support a reasonable belief on the part of Ms. Barnhart that the undersigned offered to act as her attorney. But weren't there phone calls too, though? What did you guys talk about on the phone? I guess we'll never know. Third, even if the emails could reasonably be construed as an offer of representation, Ms. Barnhart's own testimony establishes that she rejected that putative offer. Indeed, she testified that she was quote-unquote suspicious and quote-unquote not comfortable with the undersigned acting as her attorney, and she therefore quote-unquote cut off all communication with the undersigned and proceeded to speak with the plaintiff's counsel the following day.
Because he gave legal advice and said it's not going to cost you anything, I can help you respond to the subpoena. I can help you file this in court. There was guidance given, but you filed a motion for sanctions saying that Saltz should be sanctioned because she was represented. So
fourth, even assuming an attorney-client relationship was formed, Ms. Barnhart does not have any identifiable quote-unquote interests with respect to this lawsuit, let alone any interest that might be prejudiced by the undersigned continue to represent defendants. Indeed, as she herself expressly and repeatedly recognized, her only connection to this litigation is as a fact witness, with information that is relevant, if at all, only to the issue of this court's personal jurisdiction over defendants. But Brown dragged her into the sanctions motion himself. She might have to testify on that. He forgot to mention about that one, didn't he? Fifth, any confidentiality that would have attached to Ms. Barnhart's communication with the undersigned was waived by virtue of the declaration's express reliance on the characterization and mischaracterization of those communications for the purpose of impugning the undersigned. However, he did have conversations with her over the phone that nobody knows what those conversations were. He also filed docket 52 under seal with more information about her, and he also has disclaimed a lot of things about her personal health related situation in this past couple of filings. So he does have a lot of information on her that makes it kind of unprofessional of him trying to remain in the case and cross-examine her in the event that she becomes a witness during the jurisdiction situation and the sanctions situation. Factual background. Ms. Barnhart initially made contact with the undersigned via email on December 24, 2020. She explained that she understood that the undersigned was Ms. KJ's attorney and expressed concerns about being harassed by plaintiff's counsel and abusively quote-unquote outed in the former declaration filed by plaintiff's docket 27-3, in which they exposed irrelevant but very damaging personal information about her. The undersigned responded to Ms. Barnhart as a potential witness, not a potential client, and that began a series of email exchanges and 2 phone calls over the subsequent 18 days.
Wait a fucking second, though. Brown argues in the motion for sanctions that there was an attorney-client relationship and that Saltz should be sanctioned for talking to Lorianne because there was an attorney-client relationship. You can't argue opposing arguments to the court.
The majority of the email conversation centered on Ms. Barnhart's agreement to sign a declaration, quote-unquote, the first Barnhart declaration, which would be filed by defendants. The purpose of the first Barnhart declaration was twofold. One, to explain the abusiveness of the former declaration and specifically Ms. Barnhart's beliefs that she was deliberately outed in retaliation over a spat she had with plaintiff's counsel Michael Saltz in November 2020, and 2, to confirm defendant's statement that they did not know Ms. resided in Washington until the fact was disclosed in this lawsuit. I'm sorry, but that's not how I remember this. Based on her declaration with Saltz and Brown's own response to the declaration, that she first reached out to KJ because Saltz had outed someone else with the same name as her, and her primary worry was that this other person would be notified as well as Saltz. Also, she didn't want to fight over the subpoena. She just wanted them to have access to her stuff and get done and over with. That's what I remember about this situation. Now, on the second point that she wanted to confirm knowing that KJ did not know her residence, I don't know. I think, and let me play devil's advocate here, perhaps she was going to do a quid pro quo in exchange for Brown to fix the situation with the other Lorianne in Saltz's declaration. She was persuaded into signing a declaration that perhaps might not have been the most honest. And once she realized that she was going to sign a paper under oath, she might have changed her mind and reached out to Saltz herself. And if that's what happened, Brown is even worse than he looks like. But then again, this is just my speculation, my opinion, and crazy kind of conspiracy theory here. This is not a fact. Ms. Barnhart helped prepare and edit that first Barnhart declaration, and he was eager to sign it on the evening of January 6. The undersigned and Ms. Barnhart also exchanged emails and spoke about plaintiff's subpoena to Ms. Barnhart, which was never served. It is the emails regarding this letter subjects that form the basis for the suggestion in Ms. Barnhart's declaration that she and the undersigned formed an attorney-client relationship. The undersigned and Ms. Barnhart spoke on the phone on January 5th, 2021 about the declaration and the subpoena. The undersigned explained that he was the defendant's attorney and not hers. She told the undersigned that she already recognized this, and then he refers to his own declaration. Ms. Barnhart now relies on emails the undersigned sent subsequent to this call. to suggest that at some point he became her lawyer for purposes of responding to the subpoena. In these emails, the undersigned provided general information and admonitions for Ms. Barnhart regarding responding to subpoenas and responded to some of her concerns, including a concern that she did not have money or technical expertise to comply with a demand for electronic data from her social media and email accounts. The email pertaining to the subpoena, among other topics, can be found at, and then he says dockets that you can find stuff at. He did say that he wanted to stand up for her at no cost, and he also gave her legal advice about the subpoena. Those we can see on the emails. However, we cannot see in any email him clarifying to her that he's not her attorney. And if they did it over the phone, he would know better to do it also by email because he's an attorney and she is a layperson. Ms. Barnhart certainly changed sides and completely changed her story on January 13, 2021. Ms. Barnhart emails to the undersigned late on January 10 and continue into January 11 began to sound confusing and appeared to reflect an increasing level of anxiety and even despair over the harassment and intimidation she has been subjected to at the hands of plaintiff's counsel. On January 12, 2021, after 18 days of frequent communication with the undersigned, Ms. Barnhart quote-unquote flipped and contacted plaintiff's counsel. The next day, plaintiff's counsel interviewed Ms. Barnhart for 11 hours, prepared a different declaration for her to sign, the second Barnhart declaration, and procured her sworn signature to it. They did this with the acknowledge that 1. Ms. Barnhart believed she was represented by the undersigned. 2. She was eager to swear under oath a week earlier to an entirely different and nearly perfectly contradictory version of events. 3. The 150 emails exchanged between the undersigned and Ms. Barnhart over the period of 18 days were perfectly consistent with the first Barnhart declaration, which she was eager to sign under oath and contradicted the testimony they were putting in front of her in the second Barnhart declaration. And 4. She admitted to them to being confused and unable to remember things well because of medication and anxiety. First of all, she went to SALT, maybe she was under the impression that she fired Brown. This more and more makes me believe that maybe that first declaration that Brown's tried to parade everywhere might not have been as truthful, and that's probably why she didn't want to sign it. After the second Barnhart declaration was filed, the undersigned came into possession of information strongly suggesting that Ms. Barnhart was not aware of what she was signing when she was signing it. He refers to docket 52, which was filed under seal, and he keeps referring this docket, and that's a very unprofessional move in my opinion, because that docket seems to be under seal because she doesn't want to disclose certain things, but he keeps disclosing them in every single filing. Anyway, I digress. In the second declaration, Ms. Barnhart states that the undersigned became her attorney at some point with respect to her response to plaintiff's subpoena. The circumstances surrounding the preparation of that declaration and Ms. Barnhart's state of mind when she signed it provide strong grounds for this court to disregard the testimony.
Boom, there it is.
However, as explained below, even taking a second Barnhart declaration at face value, the undersigned is not subject to disqualification from this matter. Then he starts his argument. Disqualification of a counsel is a drastic measure that should be imposed only when necessary. The court must consider the danger of a motion to disqualify opposing counsel as a litigation tactic. He again cites that lawsuit FMC Technologies Inc. versus Edwards 420F, and then he says, here, the odd circumstances surrounding plaintiff's procurement of the second Barnhart declaration and plaintiff's shifting position regarding disqualification should only heighten the court's suspicion of their motives. It was Lori Ann who called SALT. They didn't procure her. Oh my god. And then he beats that dead horse again, talking the attorney-client relationship never was formed between the undersigned and Ms. Barnhart, even though he has currently a sanctions filing against SALT because of his attorney-client relationship with Ms. Barnhart. Make it make sense, please. Then again, he talks about the emails that do not convey any attorney-client relationship, and then he goes over the emails from January 10, 2021. He talks about the fact that she was nervous about the subpoena, and then he sent her an email saying that he recommended her to sit tight accept service when they came to her door, and then that he would help her to take care of it, and that she was not in trouble. And then he quotes from her declaration saying, "Such a statement confirmed to me that I apparently was a client of Mr. Brown. In that I understood his statement to me that he was inserting himself into my situation of having to respond to a subpoena." It is difficult to know what it means to say that an email confirmed that something was apparently the case. This question is whether Ms. Bernhardt subjectively believed the undersigned was her attorney, not whether it was apparently the case the undersigned was. Further, even if this were read to assert such a subjective belief, the belief must be reasonably formed based on the attending circumstances, including the attorney's words or actions. So let's say she did believe that he was trying to represent her at this point, but guess what? She turned around, went to Salt's, and did a declaration with him, which she signed. She did not want to cement and make it objective that he was representing her. She may have believed that he was starting to try to. That's kind of what I got from his argument. And still, she could have fired him. As per her understanding, once she walked away from the situation and started ignoring him, never signed any documents with him. To me, that looks like he was fired. There was no proof of hiring. Why does it have to be a proof of firing?
But he's arguing there is enough of a relationship to sanction Salty, but not enough of a relationship for it to affect me. You can't have it both ways.
Then he goes over the January 11 email where she says, "I'm not going to go to court. I have no money. I don't know how to download everything on my phone, so you won't be done." And then he responded to her saying, "You don't need to spend money or hire a lawyer to respond to the subpoena or file declaration. I like to stand up for you by filing your declaration if you let me. It costs you nothing." He claims that she characterized this as an offer. However, he says that in context was clearly not an offer to represent her. He claims that his intent was just to let her know that she didn't need to spend money to respond to a subpoena. He also claims that he was just offering general information for her as a witness in regards of the logistics of gathering electronic data from a smartphone or a personal computer, and he did not intend any of that communication to be a legal advice. Even if Ms. Bernhardt had a reasonable subjective belief that the undersigned offered to be her attorney, Ms. Bernhardt's own testimony proves she responded by rejecting the offer.
This is a good call.
Clearly, he understands the same thing that we've been discussing the whole time, that the fact that she went to Salt's looks like that even if she believed she was being represented by him, she had hired him, or as he put it here, rejected the quote-unquote possible offer if one existed. So why the hell does he keep claiming that Saltz should have understood that there was an attorney-client relationship when him himself says that there wasn't one? This is so freaking stupid. After describing the above email passages as forming a quote-unquote offer to represent her, Ms. Bernhardt testifies that she in effect rejected that offer. She explains that 1. She was very suspicious of Mr. Brown's motives in offering to assist with the subpoena response. 2. She was not comfortable with having Mr. Brown controlling the production of her documents and or other evidence. 3. She did not feel comfortable with Mr. Brown's offer of representation, and 4. was concerned that there would be a conflict of interest in representing her and defendants. Indeed, Ms. Bernhardt testifies that she was so uncomfortable with the undersigned alleged offer that she responded by cutting off all communications with the undersigned and then proceeding to contact plaintiff's counsel. In fact, Ms. Bernhardt did cease communication with the undersigned on January 11, 2021. Even assuming an attorney-client relationship was formed is not applicable here. He claims that Ms. Bernhardt has no interest materially adverse to the defendants, and then he cites, "Lawyer who has formally represented a client in a matter shall not thereafter represent another person in the same or substantially related matter, in which that person's interests are materially adverse to the interests of the former client unless the former client gives informed consent confirmed in writing." And then with emphasis added, "For the following reasons, Ms. Bernhardt has no interests that are materially adverse to defendant's interests."
I disagree. If the situation is that Lorianne gets roped into either a hearing with regard to jurisdiction or a hearing with regard to sanctions, Lorianne's truth might be, they tried to get me to say I don't know her, and that wasn't the truth. That is directly not in Brown or KJ's best interest.
First, the only indication of an adverse interest is in the form of vague assertions in the second Barnhart Declaration. That declaration lacks any evidentiary value because of the circumstances surrounding its drafting. Second, the only quote-unquote interest even hinted at in the second Barnhart Declaration is Ms. Barnhart's alleged possession of information that contradicted testimony Ms. KJ provided in support of defendant's motion to dismiss. As explained in length in docket 43, that information is contradicted by what Ms. Barnhart repeatedly said and wrote to the undersigned over the 18-day period they were in communication and the testimony in the first Barnhart Declaration. Ms. Barnhart's first story was plenty consistent with defendant's interests. It would be unfair to defendants and the undersigned to permit plaintiffs and or Ms. Barnhart to create a disqualifying conflict by suddenly changing that story 180 degrees. You already know my opinion by now that I think that his declaration was not the truth, and that's why she didn't sign it, and that's why she ran from it. And he keeps dragging this thing, obviously in a desperate attempt to get this thing thrown because possibly prove jurisdiction, but also that KJ may have lied in her own sworn declaration.
If it came up that there was ever a motion with regard to perjury where Lorianne's saying, no, what? And she said this in her declaration, no, what KJ said in her declaration is not true. Lorianne could very well be a witness at a perjury hearing if that ever came up.
Third, even if Ms. Barnhart was in possession of information that would be somehow damaging to defendants, that would not give her a material quote-unquote interest that could be jeopardizing by the undersigned continuing to represent defendants in this matter. Indeed, Ms. Barnhart repeatedly told the undersigned that she had no position with respect to the claim in this litigation. She explained she was just caught in the middle. And he put some quotes from her. I am caught in the middle. I have no basis to judge those legal claims, and I have had no interest in the Westbrooks before or after this lawsuit begun. I have never had any interactions with Tati Westbrook or her family. I have never tweeted anything at or about Tati. Isn't this about Tati and her harassment? KJ knows I have nothing to do with this. Moreover, to the extent Ms. Barnhart actually had such damaging information and had an interest in disclosing it, she had already done that when she gave plaintiff's counsel access to her emails and social media accounts, allowing them to review everything therein, apparently with no constraints and no supervision. Ms. Barnhart clearly waived her confidentiality with respect to her communication with the undersigned. So here he talks about how once she stopped talking to him and went to Salt's, now all of their conversations are no longer confidential. You guys can pause it and read this part, but it's just to say that nothing that they discussed is confidential anymore between the attorneys in the case. Conclusion: for the foregoing reasons, defendants respectfully request that the court enters an order finding that no grounds exist to disqualify the undersigned or the law firm.
Huzzah!
I can't believe we went through the whole thing. Thank God it's over. But before I give you guys my closing remarks on this situation, let's go over Michael Salt's declaration really quickly, and I'm just going to read the entire thing and we are going to talk about it. As per usual, he starts identifying himself and where he works, and then he proceeds to say, Ms. Barnhart and I spoke on the phone on January 5th, 2021 about a declaration we would prepare for her to sign, and the subpoena plaintiffs indicated they would serve on her, but never did. During that call, we discussed the fact that I was defendant's attorney and not hers. She told me she already recognized this. In January 11, 2021, email to Ms. Barnhart, I wrote, you don't need to spend money or hire a lawyer to respond to the subpoena or file a declaration. I'd like to stand up for you by filing your declaration if you would let me. It costs you nothing. My intent in writing these sentences is in response to Ms. Barnhart's concerns was not to offer to represent her as her attorney. Rather, it was to reassure her of two things. One, she did not need to spend money to respond to the subpoena, for example, by paying to have data retrieved because she did not know how to do it. Two, because of what she had told me, she did not need to be represented by a lawyer at all in the process of responding. on. After the second Barnhart declaration was filed, I was concerned that plaintiffs were setting up an argument for disqualification. Accordingly, I arranged a meet and confer with plaintiffs' counsel on January 27, 2021 to discuss that matter and my plan to bring a motion to qualify seeking an order finding that no disqualifying attorney-client relationship was formed. To my surprise and temporary relief, in that call, plaintiffs' counsel assured me they had no intention of arguing for disqualification based on any such alleged attorney-client relationship. Based on that representation, I sought further guidance on the potential conflict issue and determined that this motion to qualify could be obviated if plaintiffs would confirm in writing what they represented during the meet and confer. I proceeded to repeatedly ask plaintiffs for that confirmation, but they repeatedly refused. Initially, they explained that they wanted to keep open the possibility of moving to disqualifying if they learned new additional information supporting such a motion. I responded by explaining that I only needed a stipulation based on information currently known, the information they had when they expressly disclaimed any concerns about a conflict. Then their explanation shifted. They responded that they did in fact have concerns based on what they knew at the time of the meet and confer and therefore would not sign a stipulation. Even with the future information proviso, their explanation was directly contrary to their representations during January 27 meet and confer. That's basically it for his declaration. After that, it's just like sworn the statement is correct, and then you have the emails that we went through most of them but one. And if you want to read it, here it is. Just press pause and read it. But let's go through our final thoughts because this video has fried my brain, to be honest. He's trying to be really slick here, in my opinion. He wants them to promise that they're not going to try to disqualify him based on the information they already know. But the information that they want to know in the future is if Lorianne is going to have to be a witness. And that's kind of not new information per se. So he's trying to finesse his way to guarantee that he's not going to get disqualified. He's also trying to finesse his way into getting SALT sanctioned for a attorney-client relationship, at the same time not being disqualified for an attorney-client relationship, and at the same time trying to throw the entire declaration all together and on top of it get paid for all of these paperwork that he's been filing. This is absolutely insane. But now I want to know what you think about all of these filings. Do you think that he's going a little crazy? Or you think he's a mastermind who's shooting everywhere and see where it lands? If you like this video, please don't forget to drop a like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel now and ring the bell button so you can get notified every time I post. Also follow me on my socials. They will be down in the description below. I would also like to take a moment to give a huge thanks to all of the new members in the channel. And if you haven't done so yet and would like to get some neat member perks, go ahead and press the join button. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next upload.
Bye.